if you do it again, I'm leaving. And I already told him that. I was like, I'm not going through this again. And if it does happen again, I'm gone. And I straight up told him like that. And he was like, okay, well, I won't do it again. And then he did it again, and I left. I was like, I'm not doing this because next time I could end up dead. It could be worse.
As busy moms, it goes without saying that we are entitled to our necessary breaks to keeping on with our many expectations of mothering. And me, your host, Samantha, is the mama down to join you for the necessary distraction we all need when life gets too hard, too real, and too much. Join me for an hour of necessary distraction of laughs, cries, and everything in between from adulting, culture, relationships, confessions, and beyond.
Hello and welcome to the Necessary Break. I'm your host, Samantha. Today we sit down with Samantha. I know, my name is Philantha and her name is Samantha, and I've been called that my whole life, literally even down to like Sam and Sammy. And I'm like, where? Where? She's a loving mom of 2 under 2. She's all about that vegan lifestyle. It started from her pregnancy and thereafterward. And here we talk about the raw and the realness of relationship health. I feel like as moms, we know it's rough being in a relationship. We know whether you are with a partner, whether you're doing it solo, the idea of relationships, friendships, to mother friendships, to everything and beyond. We need some structure, and we are not experts at all of that. And today we hear a real life story of what she's witnessed in her life, what she's learned from being a mom, and what she's going to keep raising her little ones to not do in this world, or try to figure out what the meaning of love is. And I cannot wait to introduce you guys to her. Well, I'll actually let her say it to herself. But today we start off with her story, okay? That's an important one. And then we find ourselves in a pickle of our bits, from our happy hours to our hell no's of relationships to maybe some secrets here. And then finally learning a few things about ourselves too along the way of what it means to just be a millennial mamas. She's a little bit younger than I am, so she's a little bit cooler than I am, but I'll try to keep on the beat and be, what do they call, like extra cool? Being lit. I'll try to be lit about it. So your session starts now. So hi, Samantha.
Hello.
How would you like to go by? Do you go by Sammy, Sam?
Whatever is, it's up to you.
No, it's your name. Oh my God.
Everybody when I was little used to call me Sammy, and I'm like, I hate it. But now it's just, I'm chilling, whatever, Sam, Samantha, Sammy, whatever best suits.
Okay, well, so we got to learn a thing or two. So part of this is how I know I'm a little bit older than you. I got really annoyed with people calling me Sam and Samantha, because I'm like, I know that's the common name, but that is not my name. Yeah. Because it starts with P-H-I-L, not S-A-M. And it's literally spelled the same way. And so I've literally, I've had my Starbucks label actually like Samantha. And it's like, that's not my name, my love. So I get that. And also because I feel like with the name Sammy, like people feel like they can nickname me, which is not true. Like they just go out and be like, oh, so you're like Philly. And I'm like, I don't look like a Phil or a Philly or a Phyllis. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't flow like Samantha, where that would make a lot of sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like Phil and Philly are not shorthands for like Philantha. Like that just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Exactly. Yeah. I was going to ask, like, do you even have a nickname?
No, it's Philantha, okay? Just like how people with formal names like Elizabeth, some of them go by Elizabeth, not Liz, Beth, or like Lizzie, or what's another name? Like, oh, my friend Ellen. I've met an Ellen that goes by Ellie. I did not know that those two names even correlated together. I didn't know that Ellie was even a shorthand for Ellen. It wasn't even until I met, and I'm like, doesn't Ellie have more name syllables? Like when you spell it out, it's longer than Ellen. So why would you go by the shorthand Ellie? I don't know. Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me. But yeah, no, my name's not like, it's just Philantha. That's why like when I created this whole like lifestyle mom brand, I wasn't like, it's Philantha Shock. Like it just... I don't have one of those cool names where it's like, hi, Philantha. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'm like, I hide behind the name, The Necessary Break a little bit, as I'm like, that's a little bit more of like the brand name and makes more sense than like Philantha or like Philantha Shuck. I feel like my husband's name, it doesn't flow. Trust me. We tried naming our kid many things, and I'm like, Shuck is such a stern, short, stocky like last name. Like it doesn't flow. So like when we came up with Avery Shuck, we're like, okay, it has to have like 2 or 3 more syllables. It can't be like a and Shuck. Like it just it doesn't flow. And I was kind of obsessed with that because I'm like, I want her to feel comfortable saying her name. I didn't want her to be like, my name is Ann Shuck. Like it just feels so weird. And so yeah, that's a little bit more than what you asked for. I just go by Philantha.
I love your name.
Aww.
Because I've never heard of it before. It's so unique. So I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My good friend pointed out that my name is how it's spelled phonetically. And I love that because once people see the way it's written, it's literally like, you can't get it wrong.
Exactly. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so it's like, if I get it, if I say it, you're like, huh? But if you see it written, you're like, oh. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I like your name too. I get mistaken as you a lot. So thank you. I am going to move. Oh, we got to do your intro, honey. What is your intro? Oh, I have a cat. Yeah, I have a cat and I have 2 dogs. The 2 dogs are put away right now. Like, I'm so glad you came on when you did, which is a few minutes later than because we were trying to figure out some technical difficulties. My dogs are just like hollering and I'm like, I can't have it in the background. So I was like, I said it like 2 times. I was like, you got to put the boys away. Can you please put the boys away? And then he was like, what? And I was like screaming on the top of my lungs, like, can you put the boys away? And I'm like, oh my God. And I had like my mic the way you see me right now. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad Samantha's not on right now because that would have been really loud for her. So yeah. And he's like, oh, I just didn't hear you the first 2 times. Oh. Like, you never really hear me anyway. It's fine. Fine. Anyway, they were going out for a play date this afternoon. So I was like, just put the boys away. You can't really put the cat away. I have a very audacious cat. This boy eats Taco Bell. Like he does. Like he has stolen like our food off the table and like run away with it and try to hide under the bed. And yeah, when he was younger, he would get into toilet paper and like eat it, and like you could see his belly full of toilet paper. Like we had to go to the emergency room to get it extracted because he's so naughty. And I was like, I don't think this is cat behavior at all. And he kind of like growls when people get here, so it's like he's a cat dog. So it's really weird. It's so weird. He is not a normal cat, I tell you. But ever since we've had Avery, like he comes around more often, and he's kind of like the OG of all of our animals. Like he knows how to make it flow. Like I don't know how to tell you. Like he walks around like he owns the place, and he kind of like does that with people when they come over. So he's just like, "Oh, you're sitting here? Me too. Well, I'm just gonna sit awkwardly here while you sit here." And he'll just like stare into like the abyss of the world, sitting next to people. And they're like, "Does he want me to pet him?" I'm like, "I don't." You can try. I don't know. He's weird. All right, so we gotta get with your intro. I keep asking about it. So who are you, Samantha?
I am Samantha. I am a mom of 2. A girl and a boy. My daughter is 2 and my son is 1. And I am also living a vegan lifestyle as much as I can and as much as I am aware of things. And yeah. That's pretty much it. That's my life.
Okay, but your Instagram is pretty cool. I was kind of like impressed with you. I was just like, wow, this girl's got her stuff together.
I try.
I feel like that's such a mom response. Like, yeah, we try. We're doing it. It works. I guess it looks like something put together.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do. I feel like my whole season 1, I was like, this works, right? Yeah. This works.
Yeah. So pretty much, I mean, that's me. I try all the time. Just me trying. It's not even, like, I don't put, like, half work into everything, but some days you just don't want to do it, and...
Oh, yes. You have to. And if we don't, our little ones tell us to. They're always there to remind us of things that we did and things that we did not get done that day. And I mean that in the most loving way, because I know Avery she's 3 now, and I know that she would be like, Mom, you didn't get the dishes done. Do you need some help? And I'm like, no, honey, it is bedtime, and you're avoiding bedtime. And as much as I would love for you to help me do dishes, I can also see that you very much need to go to sleep. That's the priority. You can help me with dishes tomorrow. Then she'll be like, Mom, you're going to wait until tomorrow to do dishes? I'm like, yeah, I am. And she's like, Mom, if you need me to sit on the stairs while you finish, that's okay. I'm like, okay. Like how are you so smart? Like, I'm having a full-on dialogue with you now. It's so weird. So like, be prepared for that, because my first 2 years I was kind of like, oh, this is cute. Like, she's learning and everything. But like year 3, it's like you really have besties with you. She's my little bestie all the time, because she says sweet things like that all day long. Like this morning, she had put my phone in her backpack, and she's like, no, Mom, it's okay. I'm just putting it in there for safekeeping. I'm like, how do you know the word safekeeping? One, but okay. And I was like, all right. And I was like, Avery, I'm really going to grab my phone now, just so that, I know where it is in case people need to call me, and to the point that we have it out. And she's like, no, Mom, if you reach in there one more time, I'm going to have to close my backpack. Do we want me to close my backpack? And I'm just like,
oh my gosh.
Okay, you understand boundaries. I get that. That was so cute. Like, you're not wrong. So, like, how do I parent on parenting this part? Like, what happens now? Like, how do I say no to that? That's not wrong. Wrong, child.
Exactly. And I taught you that. So.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, shoot, you're using my own stuff against me. But like in the most insightful way. Like, she said it so, not in like a sassy way, but like just so grown. And I'm like, oh, okay.
My daughter's already doing that. And as soon as I got to my sister's house, like, she saw me do dishes a few times, and then she would grab a chair and scoot it over and start doing the dishes. And I'm like, you're only 2.
Yeah, I know.
She acts like a 5-year-old. She is full on mature. And when she was like 8 months or 9 months, my mom was like, you're not a teenager, And she like nodded her head yes. And we're like, you're a baby. I'm sorry, but you are a child. You are only 9 months old. You are not grown.
Yeah, they're always showing us like what is capable out there. And like, I think that's the thing that I get struck with a lot, because now that she's 3, I can look back and been like, all of my parenting books, resources, research that I've looked at and tried to hopefully pray it out that I'm doing it well, and that I'm setting her up with good morals and values. Like, all of that at age 3, like, just my examples I've told you, literally hits me in my face that like, you're doing a good job. Samantha, you're doing a good job. And this is pat yourself in the back, because now you're at a loss for words, because you don't know what to say, because she's using it so correctly. So, like, you can't be mad. Like, how do you move forward from having raised your kid well and it's paying off? I know that's something that I'm working through in therapy right now, because I'm like, I feel like as parents, we're always wondering if we're doing enough. I think we're always wondering if we're doing it right. I think we're always wondering if we could be done better, or like, and I think that's like what makes you a good parent. That's what I tell the parents that when I was doing my one-on-one program, that's how I'd be like, pat yourself on the back, like, give yourself a break. Like, I know we get so consumed in are we enough, but take a second and see like, what are they showing you, and what they show you and what they repeat back is like how you're doing it well. Yes. So yeah, and I went right ahead and put that in my parent program, and now it's available to everybody. So it's little tips like that where I'm like, okay, maybe this is going right. And I think it's just a parent thing. I think that's how you know you're a good parent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've tried since she was born. Even before then, I was like watching all these videos on gentle and respectful parenting, and I always try to enforce that. Mm-hmm. Or try to like not condition myself, but like connect with myself, I guess, and try to instill it in my children, because that's something that I feel is necessary, I guess. And it's different the way I grew up. I was back and forth between my mom's and my dad's, but my dad wasn't there when I was born. and like it was a court battle back and forth between them two. And one day he didn't show up to court, and like the whole entire time I was like, he doesn't really love me, he didn't at least like show that he cared. And so like one day he didn't show up to court, and I was like, okay, well that's it. So and then at like age 13 I moved to Arizona. I'm from New York, I moved to Arizona, and then I started like going to high school and stuff like that. And recently, or like in 2018, I moved back to New York. And in like 2020, I think, or the beginning of 2021, I reconnected with him. And that was
Yeah.
great. Not really. It was kind of a lot. And I gave him a second chance, and he blew it again. So I recently just stopped talking to him, and it sucks, but I at least tried giving him a second chance. And that's like another thing for relationship health comes into play, because I knew from when I was little how it was gonna go, but because I just felt it, I just knew.
Well, he's your dad. You're always going to have that biological need. We all do, as I do with my own mother, even though it could have been better. You're always going to want their love. You're always going to want to be good enough. Like that's what makes you
Right.
human. And I think that's the part that you can either spend your days being angry about or accept it and figure out a way to love them that makes sense for your core values.
Yeah, I've learned to accept it. It just sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And especially trying to give him that second chance and it just not going like good again the second time. It's just like, well, I'm living my life. I'm moving on. I'm doing what I'm going to do. Like I'm still going to keep the connection open, but as for myself, I don't feel necessary to talk to him really.
Yeah.
And like before I had moved back in 2017, like the very beginning of 2017, when I was dating one of my exes, I was in a very toxic family environment, and I was going to college at the time. Like I had just started college, I was in my first semester, and everything was going pretty okay. And then they were like, oh, well, like they were just calling me all these names and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, well, this isn't working.
Yeah.
I really don't want to be here anymore. And then I broke up with my ex, and they were like, oh, well, it seems like you're using us and all this other stuff. I'm like, how? And so then in that, like later that year, really like at the tail end of 2017, I think it was December, I ended up being in an abusive relationship. And that has really taken a lot out of me, because I didn't really heal from the last abusive place that I was in. And then I jumped into this because I wanted to be with somebody, and I thought that was the like person that I wanted to be with. And I was only in the relationship a month, and there was all this stuff that happened. I had a dog, and he took it, and I don't know what he did with the dog, and it got physical twice. The first time was like, all right, well, if you do it again, I'm leaving. And I already told him that. I was like, I'm not going through this again. And if it does happen again, I'm gone. And I straight up told him like that. And he was like, okay, well, I won't do it again. And then he did it again, and I left. I was like, I'm not doing this, because next time I could end up dead. It could be worse. And years before that, I was like really into Criminal Minds, like that was my show. And so I was watching this one, and it was this celebrity, and she was in an abusive relationship, and she ended up dead and on the news. And I was like, I don't want to be like that. So I definitely left. And I don't want anybody really going through that, because it messes you up mentally and emotionally. Like I'm like really self-conscious now after the whole thing, and I don't have the ability to go to therapy right now, so I'm working on it by myself. And I was thinking about actually having kids with him, and I'm so glad that I didn't. Because I don't know how that would have ended up. And now I'm with somebody that I really care about and I really love, and I've had 2 kids with him. And we're still together, we're engaged. So, but we both brought because he was also in an abusive relationship, and we both brought both of those into our relationship. So for the past 4 years, we have been struggling, and at first he hated me. Like, I don't know, I never really did anything to him, but he just hated me.
Your current fiance?
Yeah.
Uh,
Like, he just, like, we were still together, but he just did not, like, care as much as he does now. He wasn't as loving as he was, or, like, as he is now. And he's definitely trying, and he's trying with the kids and stuff like that. Right now, we're living in 2 separate places just because of space and our situation. So we're both trying to get over our past stuff and trying to not bring it into this one. I'm still in the same state that my ex is in, and he did not get locked up. My, what's it called, restraining order has expired, so I either, like, I'm literally scared for my life all the time. I'm always looking behind my back, and I'm always scared for my kids, because he's not dumb enough to do anything like kidnap my kids, but he's dumb enough to kidnap my kids, if you know what I'm saying. Like, he would do these things, like, he would hit me hard enough to not leave a bruise, but hit me hard enough that it hurt.
mm-hmm.
So he's, like, smart, but not really smart at the same time. But moving on to, like, the person that I'm with now, with my birth stories. When I got pregnant, we were only together, like, a month before I got pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, all right, well, I mean, we were, like, very clear that we both wanted kids, so at the very beginning, and we were like, well, we'll get into a relationship and we'll see how it goes. And it was going, and then I got pregnant with my first one.
It really got going.
And I got pregnant with my first one, and I was sick all the time, no matter what I did. And dairy runs in our family, like the allergic intolerance to dairy runs in the family. So I definitely could not have dairy. I was throwing up 24/7. And I also could not eat chicken or eggs. And those 2 things are pretty much in everything. And before that, I was allergic to corn. And then, like, I grew out of that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got pregnant. And now I can't eat dairy, chicken, or eggs because I'll throw it up. And then I would just I wouldn't throw up with all the other animal products, but I would just be really sick and nauseated. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't even want to have sex. Like, I was so sick and nauseated all the time. I didn't even want to be near them.
Yeah, I get that.
And so that was, like, my start to my vegan journey. And I cut out all that stuff. And I felt so much better. I was just eating fruits and vegetables all the time. That was, like, those things that didn't make me sick. I would go to the vegan section, just pick that out, because I'm not gonna look through all the products to see if they have dairy, chicken, or eggs. And then I started watching documentaries and videos on how to cook like that and stuff like that, and started falling in love with the vegan lifestyle, and I learned so much more about it. And now, and before I even did that, I took a culinary class, and I did not want to touch the meat. I felt so disgusted every single time I smelt meat, touched meat. I just did not. And so now I definitely don't. But going through that pregnancy, my birthing was so much easier than my pregnancies.
That's how mine was too.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, it's kind of like a blur. Because it was just so traumatic. Like, the pregnancy, not the birth. Pregnancy just sucked. And so my birth for my first one, for my daughter, it was like the day, it was her due date, but at like 3 o'clock in the morning, my contraction started, and I didn't know. I was like, oh, they don't hurt that bad. I'm just, like, gonna lay here. So for, like, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours, I'm laying there in bed. Didn't get any sleep. I was, like, at 11, my fiance actually went into work, and I was like, I'm fine. Just go in. And so, like, an hour or 2 later, I'm like, oh, we're going to the hospital. So he walked back home. And because I called the OBGYN, and I was like, I'm having these symptoms. Like, my back hurts. My abdominal area hurts, like, and she's like, you're probably gonna want to go in. So I got there, And I checked in at like 11:30 or something like that. And I got up to the room and they had me changing. It was like 12 when I got up there. And they had me changing into like the gown and robes or whatever, and my water broke as I was changing. That was like 15 minutes after I got up there. And then at like 1:40, she was out. Like an hour later, she was out.
Oh my goodness.
As soon as my water broke, pretty much she's out. Like,
whoa!
They didn't even, I had group B strep at the time too, and they didn't even have enough time to give me both rounds of medicine. So I could only do one. And so I had to stay there for 2 days because they wanted to make sure nothing was wrong with the baby or me. And so that was a journey. Like, that was a birth. I wasn't expecting it to go that fast. And
how long were you pushing for?
15 minutes, I think.
Oh my gosh, same. I thought it was like 25 hours. But then when they were
longer.
Yeah, no, that's insane. Like, I didn't realize it was actually 15 minutes. It just felt, when you're in the zone, you're kind of just like, this is just part of the emotions of it. It wasn't until the next day that like the midwife was like, no, it was only 15 minutes. And I was like, wow. And then my husband was like, no, honey, 15 minutes, like short 15 minutes, not like long 15 minutes. I'm like, oh, wow. Like, wow. Oh, my body did that. Like, whoa, it seemed a lot longer when I was in it. And so I look back on it, and same thing. Like, I had a long, enduring pregnancy, but my labor was so short. Like, they had given me the epidural, but it didn't even work because 20 minutes later I had Avery and I felt everything. And they were like, yeah, you shouldn't be able to get up to go. Like, they could have even put a catheter in me because she was so quick. Because usually when you get the epidural, you get a catheter, and that didn't even happen. After I had her, they're like, yeah, you shouldn't be able to stand to go pee. Like, you need help. Like, and I was like, I did it by myself. I was fine. And they're like, yeah, no, you need to call the nurse. And I'm like, I feel my legs. Like, should I not? And they're like, oh my God, that means it didn't even work. And I'm like, I knew it because when I was in labor and it really, really hurt, and I was like pressing the button for like more epidural, they were like, no, you can't keep pressing it because you're out already. And I'm like, well, nothing's working. Like, I'm literally clicking and I'm feeling everything. Like, now it's just a mental game. Like, my body just thinks if I click this, then it will fix it. Which at this point, I didn't know then, but like afterward, I was like, oh, yeah, no, the epidural didn't work. It didn't work.
I didn't even have enough time to get epidural. Like, can I have it? And they were like, oh, there's not enough time. I'm like, all right. And then like I went through the natural process. All I had was like, I don't know, it was some kind of drug, but it was like
Pitocin or something.
I don't know. It just made you feel drunk. It was like a pain thing, but it didn't really work. It kind of just makes you loopy. Like,
was it like the gas mask thing?
They didn't even do that. It was like a medicine. It was like a painkiller medicine kind of thing.
Interesting. Yeah, now I'm wondering what it was.
I can't remember the name. I had it for both. I was like, I shouldn't have even bothered. It didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And so I did natural. I was like, all right, well, if this is how my second one's gonna be, then may as well.
Yeah. Oh my. How did your second one go?
So my second one, he was late.
Like, how late?
A week, I think, or like 6 days. So he was born on Friday the 13th.
Oh my. What a lucky baby.
I think he was supposed to be born the 7th or something. So, yeah, that. And my sister had hers 5 years ago on Black Friday.
Oh my God, you guys really have the perfect American holidays there.
Yes. So, yeah, and my second pregnancy wasn't as bad as the first one. So I was kind of like, my whole like 3 years-ish of the vegan plant-based have been going like back and forth. It hasn't been really solid up until recently, because during my second pregnancy, I could eat the dairy and chicken. But as soon as I gave birth, both of my kids have the dairy allergy. And I was like, okay, I'm not doing that because it's in everything, so may as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to have those items in my diet while I was pregnant with my second one and not really throw up, but I was still nauseated. But after I gave birth, the breast milk would make him throw up.
Oh.
Like,
Was it the breast milk, or do you think he just had like reflux?
No, it was the dairy going through my breast milk.
Oh, okay.
Because I also was just recently on birth control, and that has lactose in it.
Mm.
And I didn't know it, and I was just like, I'll try it, and he threw up. I was like,
Who would have thought?
right. And I didn't think that lactose would be in those pills or anything like that. Like, they're not in just birth control, they're in a numerous amounts of medicine. And so after that, I was just like, all right, well, guess not. But going back to the birthing of him, yeah, he was a week late. And he didn't even, like, when I was supposed to have him, I started having contractions in the middle of the night, and then they stopped. And I was like, okay, well, I guess not. And so then we went in that Friday in the morning. They had me come in. I called them. I was like, hey, can I come in? They're like, can you wait an hour because we don't have any beds? Okay. So then I called them back, and they were like, yeah, you can come in. So I went in, and I barely didn't even, like, they wanted to make sure before I gave birth they had the full 2 rounds of antibiotic because I had group B strep again. And so they were like, well, before you give birth, we're going to give you those just to make sure that it works and everybody's safe and all that other stuff. And so that happened, and then they just started the Pitocin, I think, and I had already started my contractions. Like, my mucus plug already came out, and I didn't even, like, have Pitocin in my body, really, and my contractions had already come back, so they only needed Pitocin, like, probably for, like, 15 minutes, maybe, or 30 minutes, and then it was, like, full labor. And the doctor was just like, as soon as her water breaks, make sure that you have everything ready because she's a fast deliverer. And so then, yeah, it was kind of the same thing for him. Like, as soon as my water broke, like, probably a half an hour because it was cut in half. Like, 45 minutes to half an hour, he came out.
Wow. Man, your vagina must be super strong. It just pushes them out real quick.
I guess, but he came out, I don't know if he actually came out with a broken collarbone or something actually happened at the hospital that I don't know about, but I found it, and all the doctors was like, oh, he's fine. I'm like, hello?
Yeah.
How am I finding my baby with a broken collarbone?
Yeah.
And he's over here screaming and crying, and I didn't find out until probably, like, almost a week later.
Oh, poor thing.
Because I saw that he had, like, a bruise. We ended up doing the week appointment, and he had, like, a bruise around his collarbone, and I didn't know. And then I felt it, and it was like a bump, and I was like, okay, we're going back. So they took the x-ray, and he had a broken collarbone. So, and they were just like, well, don't really do anything. Just try to have him not lean on it and stuff and let it heal. Now he seems pretty okay, but when he was crawling, he would, like, because his arm was so weak, he would, like, face plant into the ground. I'm like,
yeah.
I was like, no. So he kind of, like, I know boys are, like, a little later at learning, but he started walking at, like, 1, like, a few weeks before his 1 year birthday.
Oh, wow. Man, that did not hold him back. He's like, I got this.
I know. And I think it was, like, the pain of him going through it. He's like, I don't want to deal with this. I'm going to start walking. So, yeah, those have, like, and my fiance also, we were going through a lot, like, our whole relationship, we've been going through a lot. He was there for my daughter's birth, but he didn't stay with me at the hospital. My mom stayed with me at the hospital. And then when our son was born, he actually stayed at the hospital with me. So all these things we're learning, and
we're trying to keep our relationship together and just staying strong, I guess.
Yeah, try to make it work. Just trying to figure out the relational piece. I know my husband and I, like, we've known each other for half our lifetime, so sometimes our problem is we're too familiar with each other that sometimes we forget the respect a little bit. Not in the means of, like, disrespecting each other, but just sometimes we say a few things that are a little bit too crass, where it's like, wait a minute.
Right.
We're way too comfortable with each other sometimes. And it's nice to just bring it back a little bit and still see each other as each other's persons. Like, just because you can say it doesn't mean that you should. It's something that we say in the house a lot. And we say that with Avery too. Like, just because you can say it doesn't mean that you should. If it hurts other people and their feelings, that is the utmost thing that we care about. So yeah, I know like it's a lot, especially because he's military and everything, and we're raising Avery with more like that respectful, gentle parenting. I know like that's been hard on him because he's just like, this is not, I think he's just also on his own journey as well too, of trying to figure out communication and how things work. And I think as adults, like we figure out like what we know by all of our surroundings, right? And what raised us. And sometimes as the adult, we also have to take a second and be like, am I needing to unlearn this habit?
Yeah.
How is it serving me? And just because I was learned how to talk like that or speak like that or make my actions a certain way doesn't mean it validates my values at all, or that it aligns. So I know that I feel like that's a thing. Like so we went to a few weddings this past summer, and on their little notes are like, have some advice for the bride and the groom. And I'm pretty real about it. And I'm like, go to marriage therapy. Even if your marriage is perfect, go to therapy. Even just like once a month or once every 6 months. Seriously, like you need it. Like that's what I'd write on the card. And Parker would be like, talk to each other. And I'm like, yeah, okay, hon. Like definitely just talking, assuming that we all know the answers is definitely going to help. And I was like, that's the one thing that I give to anybody getting married is like, don't ever underestimate the power of seeking a therapist for anything. Like anything. It could be dumb as resolving a fight about who's taking the kids, or like there's a lot of underlying things. Like I feel like as adults, when we come together in marriage, we think that we have it all figured out and that we only need to rely on two people. And the thing is, that's not true. Like you need to have, each person needs to have their own people. And I think even you need to be able to have somebody who is there for you, not judge you, not critique you, but just be there for you and be your venting hole. But like you just, and not just that, but like you need, as a person, you need to also learn how to forgive, unlearn, and accept. Those are the three things that are like so important because it's a lot easier said than done. And also those three things play as far as like having children too. Like you need to learn how to unlearn, accept, and tolerate what's happening with your children. And like as they grow up, you are going to get your trigger points. Those trigger points go strike right back to your childhood and who you are. So it's like you can be as upset as you are, but that upsetness is not geared towards your children. No matter if they shouldn't have screamed. Yeah, they shouldn't have pulled. Yeah, they shouldn't have pushed. Yeah, they shouldn't have thrown. Yeah. And just because you're triggered does not mean that you get to put all of that anger on your child because they did something wrong. Like that is you just projecting on your own misjudgment here and your own self-love that you need to tend for. That is not on them. Sure, the lesson here is that they don't have impulse control. So of course they did that, but that doesn't mean that that's okay. But it also doesn't mean that you get to yell at them too because you too can't support them in what they're going through. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so going back to like relational health, you know, I feel like as women, when we have children, like there's lots of times, especially in postpartum, where we literally can't speak for ourselves. It's not that there's anything holding us back or anything, but just metaphorically and socially, there's a lot that we can't say out loud, especially if like you're experiencing postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety or anything in between. Relationship stuff is hard, especially when like men are testosterone agitated and so are you hormonally agitated. Of course, conversations aren't going to flow. Like, of course that makes sense. Of course it's going to suck when you have to fight in front of the kids and like, you don't mean to, but everything's already so heightened and it's okay to get help, to calm down and have tools for yourself to trust yourself when you are at those heightened states to say, I can do this and I know how to handle this and I can, and this is me trying. I know those are lessons that I wish somebody would have taught me when I had Avery, because Avery, sure, Parker and I have a strong marriage and strong relationships, but the thing is like, once we had Avery, the thing is nobody told us how agitated we were going to be with each other. Not because there was anything real, but like not anything real that like was making us agitated. It's literally just because we were both hormonally raged, okay? One. And two, we're all learning, and you're learning at such a fast pace for this little one as this little one is learning for you. And to learn to give each other grace is a skill.
Yeah.
It is not something that you just say. It is a skill. It is something that you have to physically work on to give yourself that grace and the other person. And that is going to be the toughest thing. That was one of the toughest things for me to accept, that I need to give myself a lot of grace. As a recovering perfectionist, having mistakes and doing mistakes and imperfections wasn't a thing. And that's my trigger response, you know? So that's something I've had to work through. Anyway, I'm going on the soapbox opera about this right now, but it just, I hear so much of what you're saying of how much Parker and I have grown in our own relationship. And it's okay to say, you know, maybe this habit is unhealthy. Is this unhealthy? I think this is unhealthy. And I think we can make this healthy. I would like to work on how to make it healthy and not a critique, not like you're not attacking them. No one's victimizing anybody. It's just taking accountability and being like, this doesn't sound really healthy. I don't like the way I'm participating in this act right now.
Yeah.
Like I've had to say that sometimes too, because with my husband's deployment, like naturally I just had resentment. It wasn't like I was bitter and mean and all the world is going to end. It wasn't something, but it was just a byproduct of the experience that I was going through. And that was hard for me to accept because no one wants to sit here and say, yeah, I'm just a resentful bitch right now. Excuse me for having my feelings. And sure, that was a way of acting out. But what I had to do with that was like, I don't like the way this narrative is going that I'm creating of feeling these feelings. I'm going to feel these feelings, give it a place and move on because they're not in alignment with me. And I don't like the way I am in that way. Yeah. And I feel like that right there is the lesson that moms need to be given or experience or be given the tools to know how to work through, because we don't get those kind of lessons. Yeah. We really have anybody else to voice to us other than our own voices mimicking right back. Because as much as we love our partners, somehow they seem to miss this part about how we're also growing as well too as human beings.
Exactly. Yeah, I like with the triggers and everything, just like because of the abusive relationship, there are like some things that he does, or like when we have arguments, he gets like really aggressive. And
your ex?
Not like physically, no, like the one that I'm with now. And when we get into arguments, he gets like really hype and like. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you need to calm down because you're giving me PTSD and I cannot do that right now. So can you just like chill out a minute and come back because I also need to calm down and I'm going to start crying.
Yeah.
You don't.
And what's his response to that?
And he's like, yeah, I'll try. And like, we haven't really, most of our arguments really have been over text. Like, that's just how we do things. Like, that's how it's always been. But sometimes, like, when we actually, like, get into arguments, it's, like, not really us attacking each other, but we're just trying to find...
You just try to be heard.
Yeah, and find a way to compromise and see how we can fix it or whatever. And it's been better, like, with the arguments, with him being so aggressive. Like, he has calmed down quite a bit. So that's, like, one big thing that he's worked on. And just, like, I guess including me in a lot of stuff. Because when we first got together, he would still, like, do his own thing. Like, he wouldn't include me in things. I'm like, if we're going to be together, you have to kind of include me in something.
Yeah, it's a partnership. We invite each other to our lives. Just saying.
Exactly. And he didn't really know how to do that because he hasn't really been with somebody that's actually like really loved him. He's always been in like the really bad relationships.
It's hard to find that unconditional love or not live within the conditional means and limitations of previous relationships.
Yes. And with like the triggers and everything, like with so much, like with all the stress and stuff that I have, I don't intentionally to take it out on my kids. Like, I don't want to.
Oh, yeah. No, that's never the case. We never intend to. I don't think any good parent goes out and say, I'm going to intend to do this. It's like, personally for me, it's just like, I have gone through so much therapy that it's like, oh, like, of course everybody's got their incidents. Like, I've yelled at Avery. I'm like, I'm getting really angry right now. I don't like this. I'm going to walk away from you because I still love you and I want you to feel safe. So I'm going to remove myself. And like that phrase alone has taken me almost 2.5 years of therapy to be able to say. And I think moms don't give ourselves grace. Like, there's no way you can switch from like, shoot, I had an accident and I got to correct it right now. Like,
Yeah.
that is so hard to do. That's why I created my own parent program, because I was so frustrated with all the parent programs are like, this is how you do it. When I'm like, no, there's a whole hierarchy of things that you need to work on yourself before you can even apply that and implement that, which is why my program is like the 2 parts, where it's like, it's you mother the mother, because all mothers need to mother themselves first before they can mother their own children. Because by you taking care of yourself, it makes it so much easier to actually act on everything that we see when it comes to gentle parenting. Sure, there's certain ways to do it, but to do it without struggle, to do it without like remorse, to do it without being triggered, that's going to happen 99% of the time before you, in just that mental load of like, am I even doing this right? Of like, how, like, should I keep going if I can't even get all of this part right? Like, you're always having to level yourself of like, is this working? And which part of this is me? Which part is them? Which is why I created the parent program. Because I was like, there's so much more work that needs to be had before you can go right ahead and be like, yeah, I do gentle parenting and I'm great at it. Like, no, nobody starts out great. And I'm so done. Like, I was just so done with like that narrative of like, and this is how you do it. And it's like, no, that's not how you do it. That is not how it works at all. Like, I was like, especially as a person of color, that's not how it works at all. You're carrying so much more over your shoulders than I'm going to parent differently than my parents, or I'm going to, do this. The gentle parenting itself sounds permissive. And it's like, you don't need to be a permissive parent. You can still be a validated, competent parent and still hold boundaries and still hold consequences without having to, use your hands and teach them love and respect at the same time. Like, it can happen. You can hold all of those things, but I am going to tell you, it's going to come with a lot of triggering points before you even get to that point.
Yep, that's me.
Yeah.
Girl.
Yeah. Have you taken a look at the parent program at all? I should send that to you.
I haven't yet. I didn't even know that you had it.
Yeah, so that's like on paper, like legally, that's what I do. I have a parent program, and then I have this podcast as well too. So it's other than like the lifestyle brand, because you can't actually put that in Texas. It doesn't exist. Yeah. That's like what I do. But yeah, you should definitely take a look. And I think one thing, the reason why I love it, because when I go on other people's podcasts, it's usually, I just did one with Zay something podcast, and he's a male. He's a Black man. And we talk about all of this, and he's like, it's like, do you and your husband ever get asked if you guys are going to do a parent program? And I was like, why? And he's just like, I just feel like you have it so geared towards moms. I notice a lot of your work can also go towards men. And I was like, it's funny you say that, because I almost use this parenting program and gear it towards moms as a vehicle for men as well too, because men don't have that support. They don't. And to talk to other men going through the same thing, they don't do that. That's just weird vibes at that point. And I was like, a lot of my reviews are of moms saying, my husband took some feedback too, because once you buy it, it's accessible to you all the time. So I'm like, even if you're in the car and just put a lesson on, it's 5 minutes. It's a 5-minute thing that just helps you think differently and doesn't tell you what to do or that you're doing something wrong. It's just knowledge. And there's nothing wrong with having knowledge of resource. And they're like just sneaking it in things like that. They're like, surprisingly, like they come back with 10 times more questions, and they're more open to it. And I'm like, yeah, because they trust you. They won't trust me, but they'll trust you because you're their partner. You're their everything. And they're like, it's so interesting because then as the moms are learning the lessons, they're also teaching it to their husbands, and therefore teaching the whole family. And the whole point is that you become a whole resilient, loving family, and because you're now the unbothered mom. And that's like the full like end goal. Like, I want you to be an unbothered, competent mom. I want you to feel good about like the talkbacks. I want you to feel good about the moments that you are just effing pissed off. And you're like, I'm effing pissed off and I'm walking away because I can't yell at you. I don't want to yell at you. I'm going to go yell at the wall. I'm going to go blow my head into a pillow because that's healthier than me yelling at you. And it's so undeserving. And this way I don't have to apologize to you later either, because I didn't do anything wrong. I'm going to go take care of me. And this is how I do it. And so it's like, even if you physically see me walking away and screaming into a pillow. Yes, that's happened before. Avery would be like, Mom, you were really angry. And I'm like, I was really angry. And she'd be like, I'm really proud of you. Is the pillow okay? And I'm like, yes, honey, the pillow's okay. And I was like, sometimes it just helps us feel better too. I was like, it helped me to feel, and like I expressed why I did it, which sounds really dumb. But like then she was like, okay, like interesting. Like then I'm not apologizing, right? And not that there's anything wrong with apologizing. And then I don't feel that mom guilt because I didn't do anything. And 3, she also saw how to express anger in a really healthy way, even if it was weird as hell.
But that's
Like,
good.
I'd rather her think that's weird as hell, but also know like that's very valid to express anger than to project it or make somebody else feel like they're responsible for your anger, which that's not true. So I teach those kind of lessons in like really bite-sized ways so that anybody can take something away from it, because not everybody has access to therapy and not everybody of color has that kind of mindset to even start with without feeling that sense of triggerment. Because my husband, it's not without me that he knows how to gentle parent, because he doesn't like reading. And so it's really hard for him. Like he just can't stay focused for that long. Yeah. So it's really nice that it's like, that's why I'm like, I like my program because it's not just auditory, but it's physical. You can see the slideshow and everything like that. And you see the layout. And once you have it, it's yours. It's on an app that you can download so you can listen to it on the go. You can review it on the go. You can listen to it on your computer. It's something that's always going to be there. So like, even if you have multiple kids, like some moms are like, it's so nice because she's like, I just had my 3rd kid and I kind of had to review this stuff because she's like, I feel like I'm a full-time new mom now because all my kids are in different phases and all of my triggers are coming back. So there's something going on. And so she's like, I listened to it again because it was a nice refresher. And she's like, it's nice that it was always there because it was always on her phone. And so she's like, it's nice to just click in and be able to listen and do the lessons. And I don't quiz you or anything like that. Like, I don't really believe in that. Like, I think that's more traditional when people think of like schooling, and it's like those never really helped me. So I was like, if I'm going to put a course out there, I'm not going to do that. Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's quiz free. There's nothing you have to remember. There's nothing you have to test out for, and it's always available for you. Like once you have it, it's yours. Like you can review it. You can go in as often as you'd like. That's the nice thing about it.
Yeah, that's really cool because I don't know how to handle my triggers. I do the best that I can for myself with like what I know, I guess. And when my husband will take or my fiance will take the kids, like sometimes he'll take them or walk with them and he'll go into the store. Like we just saw each other 2 or 3 weeks ago or something like that. We've seen each other the past 3 weeks, and he went into the store with our daughter and everybody was just like looking at him. Because they never really see, like, dads taking their kids, going out, doing these things. They always see the moms. So, and he came back to the car, and it was like that in New York, too. He would take our kids and go somewhere, and people would just stare at him. I'm like, there's no reason for it. Like, I understand why people do it, but there's also no reason for it. And I feel bad for the men that, like, actually try, and they don't get enough credit for it.
I get that because that's how my husband feels. Like, he comes back and he's just like, it was fine. We went to Target and it was good. Like, I don't know how people were staring at me the whole time, but it was fine. And it's just so interesting because he's so good with her too. So like, even if she throws a tantrum and stuff, he'll be like, all right, we're sitting here until you're done. Like, not in like a consequence kind of way, but just more so like, I'm here as like your partner. Like, you're having a minute, have your minute. Okay. I'm going to make sure it's safe. I'm going to make sure that other people can still walk around you. But when you're done, like, I'll be right here. We'll talk about it and we're going to keep shopping. Like, the consequence is you get to throw a tantrum when we go home. No. You can throw your tantrum and we're still shopping. So just so you know, life still continues, which was the lesson. And I feel like people complicate like lessons or like consequences too often. I feel like we feel like it has to be a bad thing, like a bad consequence. When I'm like, maybe the consequence could be good. It's teaching them that two things can exist. It's to say that the world doesn't always revolve around you. And I'm also not going to give up because I'm embarrassed and I can't handle myself. Yeah. And I feel like that's when adults really shy away from like parenting is hard. And it's like parenting is hard and it doesn't need to continue to stay hard.
Yeah.
There are better ways, and you are the adult. You have the ability and the cognitive skill to control yourself a lot better than your 2-year-old who can't control their outbursts and their embarrassments. And when they have to go, like they literally cannot control that for the life of them, but you can as an adult. So I just kind of reference all of that a little bit more. I feel like I'm already giving you nuggets of like my lesson plans and stuff like that.
It's okay. I mean, I struggle so much with that. And I'm finding so many more people are struggling with it, but it's like, why are we struggling with it? Like, why are so many of us dealing with depression or ADHD or stress or like,
yes,
hello?
Same, girl, same. You're talking to the right girl. It's a whole journey. And that's, again, why I made an online program, because I was like, we don't need to keep struggling. Like, how come these resources are not being shared? How come these knowledge, why it's so, yes, therapy is there, but not everybody has access to it. And not everybody has the consistency to provide for it. And that does not mean that everything I've learned cannot be shared to 10,000 more people who need those lessons. Like, it's not my fault that I had those lessons, but it is my responsibility to know what to do with it. Right. And that's what I like to do. I like to be able to share what I do know. I like to share what can be better. I want more moms to be more competent. I want more moms to feel confident. I want more moms to feel unbothered. I want them to feel like they've got this. I want them to feel as if anybody critiques them for their parenting, they're like, okay, and I'm still the mom at the end of the day. Yeah, it's my kid and this is how I'm handling it. And I know that they're safe, they're loved, and they're respected, no matter how they're reacting, no matter if they're throwing stuff, no matter if whatnot, like I'm still their mom and I'm good. Like I'm good and I've got this. Like that's why I put this resource out there. And my thing was like, it was just draining for me to do like one-on-ones because it would be like this for like 6 weeks straight, which I loved. I loved doing that. But it took because I was taking on like 10 to 20 clients at a time. And as much as I love that, it was like, how can I amplify this so I can help more moms more often at their time? Because the mom guilt is so real. Like it's so real to take more time away from your kids or to have another sitter or afford a sitter for an hour. So I get that. That's why I'm like, you know what? This makes more sense for my community. This makes more sense.
Yeah, it does. And my mom guilt is so bad. Like I feel pretty much guilty 24/7 because I spend time with my kids and I never really get a minute to myself because they're attached to me.
Yeah. And that's physically like stimulating. Like we are so touched out so quickly because we are touched all the time. Like physically, mentally, emotionally, verbally, like we're touched out all the time because we are being touched. Like, and a lot of times like our personal space isn't a thing that exists anymore. And we're still full human beings. So I get you. I can preach the same thing because I get you.
And so with like them throwing their tantrum and stuff like that, I worked on it quite a bit. Anastasia's starting to get to the point where my sister, like, we live with my sister, so her 3 kids have taught her some things that I don't really like. And so it's just like, Anastasia, you're not going to do that right now. Like, you can, but I don't appreciate that you're doing it right now, and I don't appreciate that you've learned that.
Yeah.
So we need to change this. And, like, the other day, she was doing something, we were in the store or something, and she got really upset about whatever she got upset about, and I let her have her minute, but she also didn't have her nap. So, like, those are just, like, really good things. Like, those things, that a nap is something that I've really found that helps with their attitude. So if they're tired, just like when we get tired, or just like when we don't like food, like, she's like, I don't like it. I'm like, okay, I'll get you something new. Because when we're, like, after we grow up, when we don't like something, we get something different. So I'm like, okay, well, if you don't like that, we can save it for later, or I'll eat it.
Yeah. just, you're talking about respect. You're literally just giving them the basis of respecting another human being. And I feel like our generation, I don't know what happened to our generation, maybe our parents or whatnot, but like it, like we were like byproducts or almost like brought around like puppies. And like I know, like growing up in the 90s, like we cannot do a lot of the things that the way we're raising our kids now. It does not work that way. No, we, like my mom would leave me at home. Like she'd go to work, go to Target, come home, have dinner, and that was it. But what it looked like to me was I came home, I went to go and play with the kids in the neighborhood, and I locked the house, and I was out in the neighborhood, like with no adult supervision and with my bike, or, you know, and I just hung out until I knew that my mom came home like 6:30, 7 o'clock, and then I'd go home and wash up. Like I can't really do that with my kids anymore. Like now it's like if she's home, it's like, okay, you need a sitter or something until I come home, or I need to work out my work schedule. Like, I mean, just thinking about like when she's 9, 10, 12, it's like, I can't just leave you home anymore by yourself. And like on Saturday mornings, I can't just make plans and assume that you'd stay home by yourself. Like, it does not work that way anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like, socially, it's not acceptable. It's just be like, yeah, no, she's hanging out at home. She's fine. She's got Disney Plus. Right. Like, it does not work like that, like, at all.
Right. But now finding out, it's just like, we didn't get that attention, so now we're like having all these psychological problems.
Yeah.
Problems, emotional
attachment
problems.
Issues, for sure. Yeah.
No, I don't want this. I never asked for this.
But. Oh, yeah. No, totally. I totally get that. I totally get that in a nutshell. And like, again, that's why I did my parent program, because I was like, this knowledge needs to get shared. It needs to get shared, and it needs to be knowledge for, like, it's a positive thing. Like, it's a good thing that you're getting better. It's a good thing that you're unlearning what isn't working, because so much of, just because you know it doesn't mean that that becomes who you are. And you have a lot more control and say in what happens to your kids and what happens to you as you're their parent now. It doesn't have to be until they're 18 and then you make changes. It could be now.
If you don't make them now, then there's going to be problems later.
Yeah. And you know, problems with yourself, one, first. And then two, when you do realize it and wake up and pick your head from the picket line, you're going to be like, oh, I did that. I created that for you. I am so sorry. Like, but then you can't undo the hardships that you've created, you know, or like the attachment issues. And like, so I can talk to you about that all day long.
Same. That was something that, that's something that I stopped having. Like, I stopped having attachment issues just because, like, psychologically, I felt like everybody, because there was like a certain point in my life. And now I don't even really have friends. Like, I have like one or two. I don't even know if they're friends. And like, I stopped getting attached to people because they were always leaving.
Yeah.
Like, especially with like
you sound like young Samantha.
The whole scenario with my dad, like that, like I really wanted him there, but he was never there. So, but I had a really great stepdad that was there. He's my father figure. I consider him as a dad. And so like I've grown attached to him. And I've grown attached to my fiance. Like, I've known my fiance for 4 years. Why wouldn't I grown attached to him? Like, and so if our relationship were to ever end, I don't think I'd ever be able to date anybody else, just because
you'll be all right. You've got yourself. Like, my thing is like, attachment isn't a bad thing. It's what makes us human. You should always want to connect. Connecting is a byproduct of relationships, and it's a byproduct of being able to thrive. Like, look at the pandemic, how many people suffered out in isolation just because it was so weird to not have touch or communication or anything like that, or just to be checked in with anyone. And I think this past 2 years, I think the people that suffered the most are moms, just because we've had to be everything for everybody else, especially for little children and everything, that we haven't really come back to ourselves. So I don't know if you're coming to like Tuesday's virtual event, but I would love to have you there, just so you can connect with other moms. Like, it's other moms that are not from Minnesota. It's like from like Maine and New York and like Florida and stuff. It's just a mom mental break, dump in on like, just to vent out, like, what are you going through? Like, if you don't have anything to say, then at least give your ear to listen, or give a way to connect, because I bet you another mom is going through the same thing. And the first step to connecting is being heard. And then the next step is being able to voice your own opinion, or you voice what you need to vent out, or a way to connect. And then the third is to continue relationship. So really creating that reconnection as well too. So I'm having them every Tuesday. I would love to have you on there. And I think you'd be so great at it, especially just sharing that you're on the podcast already and having so many moms have some sort of direction towards you. I think that's amazing for your own efforts. And just to keep coming back and reconnecting, because we moms suck. We're so flaky. I can be flaky too. And being able to just have something that's consistently there, like us millennials are suffering from so much attachment issues, detachment issues, I should say, that like, of course it makes sense that we're flaky. Like we haven't had a lot of securement in our lives to say, I mean, just like all the things that so much history has happened in our life already that like has shown us that we can't be dependent on things that are permanent. And being able to have spaces where like we know that we can depend on allows us to trust that a little bit better, and then trust the moms that are coming, because all of our lives and all of our stories are also similar. And it doesn't mean that we have to be in isolation and the torment of that loneliness just because we're moms. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Did you have any questions for me?
This is already an hour, and I think this is really good content. I would love to go into my bits, but girl, you did such a good job. Okay. So I think I'm just going to end it there. I think you did such a good job. Thank you for sharing your story. You did such a good job. I know that this is going to be a really good episode. I will if this is going to go more for the podcast, or if I'm going to put it for like the Facebook content, because I'm doing exclusive episodes for the Facebook mom group. And I feel like your story aligns more with like the Facebook mom group, because that's where like the ultimate mom stories are. And I think yours would go on there too. And then I'm also going to put it on YouTube as well too. So anybody who's listening can also listen to it as well too. So I think you're doing such a good job. And thank you for so much for sharing your stories. And like, if you have any questions about relationships or anything like that, or how marriage or fiance life is supposed to go, I'm always here as an outlet.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Samantha. I had so much fun with you.
Yeah.
Stay on the line though.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of The Necessary Break with your host, Samantha. We love that you enjoyed yourself with this episode. Send us a voice memo of your favorite moment, write a 5-star review, and click subscribe to be the first to listen to the next episode. See you next week.